Act as if you are the luckiest person in the world. There is a quiet truth that most people overlook, yet it shapes every moment of their lives. The world does not respond to who you wish you were. It responds to who you believe you are. So I ask you, who are you being right now? Are you the one waiting for luck to arrive? Or are you the one who is luck itself? Because the moment you decide, truly decide, that you are the luckiest person in the world, something extraordinary begins to happen. Life rearranges. Opportunities appear. Doors open where there were once only walls. Not by accident, but by alignment. You see, luck is not a random event. It is a state of being. Most people move through life hoping things will go their way. They wake up expecting delays, disappointments, and difficulties, and then they call it reality when it shows up. But what if reality is simply mirroring your inner expectations? What if the reason things don't work out is because deep down you're convinced they won't? Now imagine the opposite. Imagine waking up each day with the unshakable knowing, everything always works out for me. Things fall into place effortlessly. I am always in the right place at the right time. Feel that for a moment, not as a wish, but as a fact. Because when you embody that feeling, you stop chasing luck and you start attracting it. The person who sees themselves as lucky doesn't hesitate. They don't second guess every opportunity. They move with quiet confidence, as if life is already on their side, because in their mind it is. And here is the secret. Life must reflect that belief. Acting as the luckiest person in the world doesn't mean pretending on the surface while doubting inside. It means claiming it within, so deeply that it becomes natural. It's in the way you speak, the way you think, the way you react when things don't go as planned. Even then you say, this is still working out for me. That is power, because the outer world may test you, but your inner conviction determines the outcome. When something delays, you assume it's leading to something better. When something ends, you trust it's making space for something greater. When something unexpected happens, you know it's part of your advantage. That is how the luckiest person thinks. And slowly, quietly, consistently, reality begins to agree. You'll notice it in small things first. Perfect timing, chance meetings, unexpected wins, then bigger shifts. Opportunities you didn't chase, outcomes better than you imagined. And one day, you'll look back and realize, it's not that you became lucky, it's that you finally allowed yourself to be the person for whom everything works. So stop waiting for proof. Stop looking outside for confirmation. Decide, right now, in this moment, choose to be the luckiest person in the world. Walk like it, think like it, feel like it, and watch how the world begins to reflect that decision back to you in ways you never thought possible. Because when you change your inner state, you don't just change your mindset, you change your life. If you want, I can also turn this into a YouTube script with title, description, tags, and hashtags like your previous requests. There is a belief that luck is something scattered randomly across the world, given to a few, withheld from many, appearing without reason, and disappearing without warning. People look at others and say, they're just lucky, as if fortune chose them for no particular reason. But what if that idea is completely wrong? What if luck is not something you wait for, not something outside of you, but something that begins within you? Consider how a person who calls themselves unlucky moves through life. They hesitate, they doubt, they expect delays, rejection, and disappointment. Before anything even happens, they have already decided how it will end. And so they act cautiously, speak uncertainly, and interpret every event through that belief. A small setback becomes proof. A missed opportunity becomes confirmation. And slowly, without realizing it, they build a life that matches their expectation. Now imagine the opposite. A person who sees themselves as naturally lucky doesn't wait for permission to believe it. They carry an inner certainty that things will work out in their favor. When they step into a situation, they are not wondering if it will go wrong. They are expecting it to go right. That expectation changes everything. It changes how they speak, how they act, how they respond. It gives them a quiet confidence that cannot be easily shaken. This is where the real shift happens. Luck begins as an internal identity. It is the story you tell yourself about who you are in relation to life. If your story is, things rarely go my way, then even neutral events will feel like obstacles. But if your story becomes, I am always supported by life, then even challenges start to feel like stepping stones. Think about it deeply. Two people can walk into the same situation and walk out with completely different experiences. One sees problems, The other sees possibilities. One focuses on what went wrong, the other on what can still go right. It is not the situation that determines the outcome. It is the state of mind they bring into it. When you begin to see luck as a state of being, you stop chasing it. You stop waiting for signs, for perfect timing, for external validation. Instead, you decide that you are already aligned with favorable outcomes. That decision may seem simple, but it is powerful. Because once it becomes natural to you, your entire way of living starts to shift. You begin to notice opportunities you once overlooked. You take actions you once avoided. You speak with a level of assurance that invites better responses from others. And even when something unexpected happens, you don't collapse into doubt. You remain steady, because your identity is not dependent on one moment. It is rooted in a deeper belief. This doesn't mean every moment will look perfect. It means every moment is interpreted through a lens that works in your favor. A delay is not a failure. It is preparation. A rejection is not the end. It is redirection. An obstacle is not there to stop you. It is there to position you. When you hold this perspective, you remove the fear that normally blocks progress. You become more open, more willing, more engaged with life. And something interesting begins to happen. As your inner state stabilizes, your outer experiences begin to mirror it. You find yourself in the right place at the right time more often. You meet people who help you move forward. You notice that situations resolve themselves in ways you didn't plan, yet somehow benefit you. To someone watching from the outside, it may look like luck, but you know it is something deeper. It is alignment, because life reflects what you consistently hold within. Not occasionally, not when it's convenient, but consistently. If you only feel lucky when things are already going well, you are reacting to life. But if you feel lucky even before results appear, you are shaping life. That is the difference between hoping for change and creating it. The key is persistence in that identity. It is choosing, again and again, to return to the belief that things are working in your favor, even when there is no immediate evidence, even when circumstances try to suggest otherwise. Because the moment you abandon that state, you return to uncertainty. But the moment you reclaim it, you step back into alignment. So instead of asking, when will I get lucky? Begin asking, who am I being right now? Because that answer determines everything. If you are being the person who trusts life, who expects good outcomes, who moves with confidence, then you are already embodying the very thing you once thought was rare. Luck then is no longer a mystery. It is no longer something distant or unpredictable. It becomes something natural, something steady, something you carry with you wherever you go. And when it becomes part of your identity, it stops coming and going. It simply becomes the way your life unfolds. There is an invisible force guiding the direction of your life, and most people never stop to recognize it. It is not circumstance, not luck in the traditional sense, and not even the actions you take on the surface. It is something far more subtle, yet far more powerful, your assumptions. The quiet expectations you carry within you every single day are shaping the experiences you meet, the opportunities you notice, and the outcomes you accept. Think about how you approach any situation. Before anything happens, before a single word is spoken or a single step is taken, there is already a silent conclusion forming in your mind. You assume how it will go. You assume how others will respond. You assume whether it will succeed or fail. And without realizing it, you begin to move in alignment with that assumption. If you expect difficulty, your body tightens, your thoughts become cautious, and your actions reflect hesitation. You may hold back, overthink, or miss the moment entirely. Then when things don't go as you hoped, it feels like confirmation. But in truth, it is often the result of the expectation you carried in. On the other hand, when you assume that things will work out, something shifts immediately. There is a sense of ease, a quiet confidence that changes how you show up. You speak more freely, act more decisively, and remain open to possibilities instead of closing yourself off with doubt. That openness invites different responses, different reactions, and different outcomes. Your assumptions act like a lens through which you see the world. They determine what you focus on and what you ignore. Two people can experience the same moment, yet one sees opportunity while the other sees limitation. One notices what is working while the other fixates on what is missing. And over time, these small differences in perception begin to shape entirely different lives. It is not that the world is unfairly giving more to one person and less to another. It is that each person is interacting with the world through their own internal filter. When your assumption is that life supports you, you begin to notice signs of support everywhere. A small success feels significant. A helpful interaction feels meaningful. Even challenges feel manageable because you believe they will lead somewhere better. But when your assumption is that life is difficult, that things rarely go your way, your attention naturally moves toward everything that confirms that belief. You notice delays, mistakes, and problems more easily. You interpret neutral events negatively, and without intending to, you reinforce the very reality you wish to escape. The most important part is that assumptions are often unconscious. They are not always spoken out loud. They exist quietly, beneath your awareness, guiding your reactions and decisions. That is why simply wishing for a different life is not enough. You must become aware of the expectations you are carrying and choose to change them deliberately. When you begin to assume that things are working in your favor, you are not ignoring reality. You are influencing it. You are choosing a perspective that empowers you rather than limits you. This does not mean everything instantly becomes perfect. It means you start responding differently, and those responses create new possibilities. For example, when something unexpected happens, instead of assuming it is a setback, you interpret it as part of a larger process that benefits you. That single shift keeps you from falling into doubt. It allows you to stay focused, to keep moving forward, and to remain open to outcomes you may not have seen before. As you continue in this way, your experiences begin to change. Not because the world has suddenly transformed, but because you have. You are no longer reacting to life with fear or uncertainty. You are engaging with it from a place of expectation and trust, and that changes the way life responds to you. Opportunities that once felt out of reach begin to feel natural. Conversations flow more easily. Decisions become clearer. You find yourself taking steps you once avoided simply because you believe they will lead somewhere worthwhile, and often they do. Over time, this becomes a pattern. What began as a conscious effort becomes a natural state. You no longer have to remind yourself to expect good outcomes. It becomes your default way of thinking. And when that happens, your life reflects it consistently. The key is persistence. It is choosing again and again to return to the assumption that things are working out, even when there is no immediate evidence. Because the moment you revert to doubt, you interrupt that alignment. But the moment you return to expectation, you restore it. So instead of asking whether things will go your way, begin by deciding that they do. Instead of waiting for proof, become the person who expects it. Because what you consistently assume is not just a thought, it is a direction. And that direction, followed over time, shapes the reality you live in. Words by themselves carry very little power if they are not backed by feeling. You can repeat to yourself all day that you are lucky, that life is working in your favor, that everything is aligning for you. But if, beneath those words, there is doubt, tension, or disbelief, then the words remain empty. They do not transform you. They do not move you. And most importantly, they do not change the way you experience life. The real shift begins the moment you move beyond language and step into feeling. Because feeling is what makes something real to you. It is what impresses an idea so deeply into your mind that it begins to shape your behavior without effort. When you feel that you are lucky, you no longer need constant reminders. It becomes natural. It becomes who you are. Think about how you carry yourself when something good has just happened to you. There is a lightness, a sense of ease, a quiet confidence. You are not overthinking every move. You are not questioning your worth. You are simply present, open, and certain that things are going well. Now imagine bringing that same feeling into your life without waiting for the external event to trigger it. This is what it means to embody the feeling of being lucky. It is waking up and, before anything has happened, choosing to feel as though something wonderful is already unfolding. It is moving through your day with the inner assumption that things are aligning, even if you cannot yet see how. It is not forced excitement or exaggerated positivity. It is a calm, steady knowing that you are supported. When you carry that feeling, your actions begin to reflect it automatically. You speak differently. There is more assurance in your voice, more clarity in your words. You make decisions with less hesitation because you trust that even if something doesn't go exactly as planned, it will still lead you somewhere beneficial. Your reactions also begin to change. Situations that once triggered frustration or doubt no longer have the same effect. Instead of immediately assuming something has gone wrong, you pause. You remain steady. You interpret the moment through the belief that it is still working in your favor. That single shift prevents you from falling into patterns that would otherwise hold you back. And this is where embodiment becomes powerful, because it is not something you turn on and off, depending on circumstances. It is something you maintain, regardless of what is happening around you. It is easy to feel lucky when everything is already going well, but the real transformation happens when you can hold that feeling, even when things are uncertain. In those moments, you are no longer reacting to life. You are influencing it. When you act as though everything is working in your favor, you naturally remain open. You notice details you might have ignored before. You take steps you might have avoided. You engage with people and opportunities from a place of confidence rather than fear. And those small differences begin to create larger shifts. Life responds not just to what you say, but to how you show up. When your thoughts, your reactions, and your attitude are aligned with the feeling of being lucky, you create a consistency that cannot be ignored. It is that consistency that begins to reflect back to you as improved circumstances, better outcomes, and unexpected advantages. But this requires honesty with yourself. You cannot simply pretend on the surface while holding on to doubt underneath. Embodiment means you practice returning to that feeling until it becomes natural. When doubt appears, you do not fight it aggressively. You gently shift your focus back to the state you have chosen. You remind yourself, not through force but through awareness, that things are still working in your favor. Over time, this becomes easier. What once felt like effort begins to feel automatic. You find yourself responding differently without even thinking about it. You maintain a sense of calm where there was once anxiety. You expect positive outcomes without needing constant reassurance. And as this internal shift stabilizes, your external experiences begin to change in subtle but undeniable ways. You encounter moments that seem perfectly timed. You find solutions appearing when you need them. You notice that situations resolve themselves more smoothly than before. To others, it may appear as if you are simply fortunate, but what they do not see is the inner state that made it possible. Because the truth is, you are not waiting for life to prove that you are lucky. You are deciding it first, feeling it fully, and allowing your actions to align with that decision. And when all three, your thoughts, your feelings, and your behavior, move in the same direction, the results begin to follow. So instead of asking whether you feel lucky, begin by choosing to feel it. Not occasionally, not only when things are easy, but consistently. Let it influence how you think, how you react, and how you carry yourself through every situation. Because when you truly embody the feeling of being lucky, you are no longer hoping for things to work out. You are living as though they already are. There is a moment in every person's journey where the initial excitement fades, and reality seems to challenge everything they have decided to believe. It is easy to feel certain when everything is going smoothly, when results appear quickly, and when life seems to agree with your expectations. But the true test of your inner state begins when things do not immediately go your way. That is where persistence becomes more than an idea. It becomes a defining force. Most people change their belief the moment circumstances shift. They start with confidence, but the first delay introduces doubt. The first obstacle creates hesitation. The first unexpected outcome makes them question everything. And in that moment, they abandon the very mindset that could have carried them forward. Not because it doesn't work, but because they did not stay with it long enough to see its effect. Dutspins is not about forcing results or ignoring reality. It is about maintaining your inner position regardless of what is happening externally. It is the decision to remain aligned with the belief that things are working in your favor, even when there is no immediate evidence to support it. This is not denial. It is discipline. It is choosing not to let temporary appearances dictate your long-term direction. Think about how easily the mind looks for confirmation. When something goes wrong, it quickly gathers evidence to support the idea that nothing is working. It revisits past failures, anticipates future problems, and creates a pattern of doubt that feels convincing. But what if you refuse to follow that pattern? What if instead, you held firmly to the belief that this moment is not a setback, but part of a process that is still leading you where you want to go? That shift may seem small, but it changes everything. Because the moment you stop interpreting challenges as failure, You remove their power to discourage you. You begin to see them differently, not as signs to quit, but as steps to continue. And when you continue with the same belief, the same expectation, and the same internal certainty, you create consistency. Consistency is what produces results. It is not a single thought or a brief moment of confidence that transforms your experience. It is the repetition of that state over time. It is returning to it again and again, especially when it feels easier to give up. Because every time you choose to remain in that belief, you strengthen it. And every time you strengthen it, it becomes more natural. At first, persistence may feel like effort. You may need to remind yourself often. You may need to consciously shift your thoughts when doubt appears. But over time, this effort becomes less noticeable. What once required attention becomes automatic. You begin to hold that belief without needing constant correction. And as your inner state stabilizes, your outer experiences begin to follow. You start to notice that situations you once struggled with begin to resolve more smoothly. Opportunities appear in places you did not expect. Solutions come at the right time. It may not happen all at once, and it may not happen in the exact way you imagined, but it happens in a way that confirms your persistence was not wasted. This is where many people misunderstand the process. They expect immediate results, and when they do not see them, they assume nothing is changing. But change often begins beneath the surface. It builds gradually, shaping your perception, your behavior, and your interactions before it becomes visible in your circumstances. If you stop too soon, you interrupt that process. But if you continue, you allow it to complete. Dupert also changes how you respond to time. Instead of feeling pressured for instant outcomes, you develop patience. Not passive waiting, but active trust. You continue to move forward, to think in alignment, to act with confidence, knowing that results are forming even if they are not yet visible. This patience removes urgency, and with it removes anxiety. You are no longer chasing outcomes. You are allowing them to unfold. And that shift makes your actions more effective, because they are no longer driven by fear or doubt. There will still be moments when things seem uncertain. That is part of any process. But persistence gives you stability within that uncertainty. It keeps you grounded in your belief, regardless of temporary conditions. It allows you to move through challenges without losing direction. Over time, this creates a pattern. You remain steady, and life begins to reflect that steadiness. What once felt unpredictable begins to feel aligned. What once felt difficult begins to feel manageable. And what once seemed out of reach begins to feel inevitable. Not because everything suddenly became easier, but because you became consistent. So when things do not go your way, do not see it as a signal to change your belief. See it as an opportunity to strengthen it. Return to the understanding that this moment is still part of a larger outcome that benefits you. Hold that position, not once, but repeatedly, because it is that repetition, that persistence, that ultimately shapes the results you experience.